following program contains language and subject matter that you may consider unsuitable for children. Parental discretion is advised.
Greetings, Earthling. His Highness the Jackals.
The Jackal.
I'm going to pass the reins to Mr. Jackal, the new king of radio.
I think Jackal's Latino. I'm not sure, but he'll give it to you good.
The Jackal.
Welcome one, welcome all, welcome friends, welcome foes to another episode right here inside the Jackal's Head, live once again on PSN Radio and PSN TV and of course the great SoFloRadio.com. Everybody, thank you for spending your evening here March 18th, 2021. I'm so happy to be live once again with you, and to be alive is a blessing with the way society is these days and with the way the world is. So we're all blessed to be here, and I want to thank each and every one of you for spending your Thursday afternoon with me. Let me lower my phone because everybody's texting me right now. Are you live? Are you live? Power off. Bam. See, Deadpool. Anyway, so yeah, everybody, thank you for joining me. For everybody watching on YouTube, DLive, and all the other places, if you have that subscribe button, please make sure you hit the subscribe button. Before we continue, I wanted to start mentioning that. As they tell me, it's important that people who are on YouTube actually subscribe. It's something to do with the algorithm and with popularity and growing the channel and monetizing the whole 9 yards. But please subscribe to the channel and give me a thumbs up or a likes or whatever. We are live, and I have an awesome guest with me tonight joining within the next 30 minutes or so. His name is Robert D. Morningstar. He really needs no introduction on my show. He's been on many times. He literally is one of my favorite guests to have on. And he's been doing his own podcast for some time now. A lot of you might know him from UFO Digest. And he's been doing really great work on not only the UFO front, but also the JFK conspiracy and a lot of other stuff that's been happening in the news, even the current stuff with the way the administration, previous and current, have been handling the world and the Kung Flu virus. So for all my fellow deplorables, please sit back and you're going to enjoy tonight's episode. I guarantee it. I want to give a special shout out to Kate again, who had a fantastic guest, Byron Rogers. Awesome guest, and just a fabulous show. If you guys didn't hear that show, make sure you check out that podcast. It's over live now, it was live a couple hours ago, but it's podcasted on our SoundCloud page, which could be easily accessed if you guys go to publicstreamingnetwork.com. That's publicstreamingnetwork.com, and check out the the shows on there and click on her tab. Also, she has her own website now where you can find all the video and audio stuff. It's Around the Campfire with Kate, blogspot.com. So Around the Campfire with Kate, blogspot.com. Check that website out, bookmark it, and make sure you catch her every Thursday and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And she really did a really good job of presenting interesting guests and interviewing Mr. Rogers about how to his background and survivor skills and how to defend himself and stuff. And interesting guest. I actually think that a great show for her would be her and Robert Morningstar. I think that would be really an interesting interview. for them to get together and do some kind of podcast episode. Whether it's on his show or her show, who knows? Either or would be great. But check the show out. Like I said, it's live now. But I have a lot of news, and I got a couple of video clips and audio clips for either or audience who's paying attention right now for you guys to check out. Interesting stuff indeed. I don't know, and this is something I caught at the last minute, and I wanted to jump right into this because I do a lot of video editing, and I make a lot of the sauce happen here on PSN, as they say, and I know how video editing works. And I saw a video of Joe Biden giving an interview in front of what they're saying is the White House, and he rarely does interviews, right? Like he hasn't done a press interview in like 60 days now, I think, or something like that. The longest any president has gone without an interview. He hasn't done a State of the Union or anything, and I think it's either the longest or one of the longest. But the video is kind of funny because as he's leaning into to hear the question, you can see like he's he can't exactly hear what they're asking him, right? The way his hand interacts with the microphone that are like in his face looks like it's layered. It doesn't look like it's a natural like effect. Like this is a microphone, right? I don't know if you guys can see. There you go. Okay. So now I'm coming towards the microphone, and I'm sorry for my listening audience. You can't see this. This is why it's great to go over to the video stream and start getting used to going there over on psn-tv.com. But back to this. Say this is the microphone. And he's doing one of these, right? Look at the perspective, right? Now, he's like here, right? But somehow, it doesn't like show up properly. It really looks like he's in in front of a green screen, and you have to kind of just see it to like understand what I'm trying to get at. But just keep that in mind for those who saw what I just did. And when I play I think I might have the video to be able to play it. Hopefully I do. If I do, let's see, green screen. Yes, I think I do have the video. Hooray for technology! Okay, I might be able to play this. If all else, if everything allows me to, anyway. But let me see. I'm gonna set it up just in case. Just in case. I don't want to have any major debacles on video and place them improper by accident, like movies that I'm not supposed to have that are just released. By the way, I'm going to have a review, speaking of which, of the 4-hour cut, as I prep this, of the 4-hour cut of the Snyder cut of Justice League. Yes, I subscribed, and I'm checking it out, and we'll see what I think of it. Oh yeah, this is going to be good. Okay, cool. I'm going to leave that there. And I'll come back to that in a second here, and I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. But anyway, so when you see this, and I'm going to play it in a second, like I said, when you see this video, it's going to like really make you think, what's going on here? Is this a real presidency, or what the heck is this? Are we being lied to? Are we getting played? What's exactly going on? And I hope that, Robert is watching or listening, so he, might have an idea of, what I'm talking about later on, so we could, bring this up and kind of dissect this video, because it's very interesting. There's been a lot of hokey stuff. I mean, I saw a tweet a while back when he first took office scary thought there. He took office. That I think it was Ivanka Trump put out, where it shows him signing one of the executive orders, and in the executive order that he's signing, in the background, it looks like he's on the first level, or he's on ground level, because you can see like a truck, like right there or something like that. You can see the grass and all that stuff. And then she shows a picture of her dad, Donald Trump, doing, almost the exact same thing again, both in the Oval Office, but yet he was on the second floor, and there was a completely different background from the window standpoint, I'm saying. So it almost looks like Joe wasn't really in the White House. Like, maybe that's like a makeshift Oval Office in a studio somewhere. And I know some people, I don't want to name names. I don't want to get into conspiracy, because I don't want to get deplatformed here. But it was kind of interesting. You never know how much you can get away with YouTube these days. But it was interesting because it really does kind of bring the question up: is he really at the White House? Is he, really running the country? And when I watch that, and then I watch the video I'm going to play for you here in a second, I really start to question that, because these things, we have to question these things. We can't just stay silent, right? That's not good. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go and play the video, shall we? Here we go. Bam, there it is. Alright, cool. Now, as you can see there, so far, so good, right? Joe is just standing there. Nothing weird about that, right? But I'm going to play the audio also for my listening audience as I play the video. But check out the movement again. Okay, did you guys catch that? Okay, I'm gonna replay that. Check this out. Because I really want people to see this. Watch the microphones.
Not at the moment.
Okay, you see his arms? Check out his arms. It's not even proportioned correctly, right? But look how close he is, or I should say how far he is from the microphone. And yet look how it looks like he's over the microphone. Watch that. Watch. Look. See? It's like, it's layered, guys. I mean, look right there. It's not even proportioned correctly. I mean, what's going on here, guys? Is this a real presidency? Is this a real administration, or what the hell's going on?
Not at the moment.
Have you decided when you're able to share thoughts with other countries? Is it allies or neighbors first?
Now, I found this on Twitter. They were posting this, and
I'll let you know that very shortly.
I mean, if anybody has an answer for this, please let me know, because I mean, just look at this.
Not at the moment.
I mean, this is shoddy Photoshop work, if I ever seen it. I'm going to see if I can pause it somewhere around here. Right there. Check that. All right, I'm gonna leave it there paused. I mean, that's not even good Photoshop as it is. That's really, really, really bad work. So when I look at that kind of stuff, I'm like, I want to believe that this guy's being serious and he really wants to do well and he means what he says. But then I see this kind of stuff happening, and I'm like, I have I have no confidence whatsoever that this is a legit presidency at this point. I mean, when I see stuff like this, are they pre-recording this before he gets to bed? Uh, what exactly are we talking about here with this President Biden? I mean, again, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out if something's not smelling right, and just by the look of that video alone tells you there's something's not right with this misadministration here. And you see that little blue marble in the background there, guys. That planet right there is being, I think, had by one of the probably the biggest hoaxes ever. Why can't this president actually go live in front of a news camera and actually address the press? What is he scared of? I mean, obviously, this is fake. Okay, I don't care if Twitter or if Facebook or YouTube or anybody wants to give me a notification or wants to kind of debunk this part of the video or whatever, or proof check it or whatnot. Whatever you want to do, but show me some proof that this video is altered. Because if it is, that's fantastic work by whoever did it, and really bad work if it's a legit video that came from the Biden people. If this is something they really put out, my God, man, they really need to up their game with the level of fakery that they're doing on video. This is laughable. I mean, once again, let me replay it, guys.
Travel to the southern border, sir?
Not at the moment.
Have you decided when you're able to share thoughts with other countries?
I mean, the guy looks literally like he is in front of a green screen. That's what. Wow, it's amazing. It simply is incredible. Anyway, when you look at stuff like that, you really have to kind of wonder, again, what the hell's going on? Are we being duped? Are we being played? Is this some kind of a con that's being done over on the American people? It really is starting to look that way when you dissect what exactly it is that we're facing now. Fox and Friends and a lot of these other news outlets, quote unquote news sources, are one of the few that kind of remain real to what might be happening, and I give them some credit for at least trying. I really do, because it's it's easy to just jump on the bandwagon and go full out and just endorse whatever nonsense. But there are people that are on Fox and Friends who are at least trying to be fair and balanced to both sides. And Primetime with Maria is one of them. She interviewed recently Donald Trump Jr. And Trump called, of course, Pepe Le Cuomo, Andrew Cuomo in New York, one of the biggest predators in American politics today on her show. And I respect Donald Trump and I respect his kids, and Donald Trump Jr., man, he's really been outspoken, which is awesome to see, because we need more people that are outspoken, who are just they are not scared. And that's I think what really resonated with a lot of the Trump supporters, which I don't think till this day they, and I want to say they, I'm talking about the Republican rhinos, don't seem to understand why Trump did as well as he's done with the Republican base. Not only that, but the independent, why so many other minorities like Cubans here in Florida jumped on and voted for him. Because, while he speaks a certain way, at least he kind of like keeps it real, right? And that's very important. Now I'm going to play another video here. This is again Fox Prime Time with Maria, and we're talking about Andrew Pepe Le Cuomo and how Biden doesn't want to really address the situation. And check out what Donald Trump Jr. has to say about this entire thing. Let's get the video rolling here. And let's see.
Yesterday.
Do you think Governor Andrew Cuomo should resign?
I think the investigation is underway, and we should see what it brings us.
I wonder if this is on green
And
screen.
the Democratic New York State Attorney General is overseeing that investigation into sexual harassment claims against Governor Cuomo, as a new Siena College poll shows half of New York voters do not think the governor should resign. Joining me right now, Donald Trump Jr., the author of the book, Liberal Privilege, Joe Biden and the Democrats' Defense of the Indefensible. Don, it's great to see you tonight. Thanks very much for joining us. Your reaction to all of this?
It's my... Listen, it doesn't surprise me. I wrote the book, Liberal Privilege, because that's exactly what this is. I talk about these very things, right? If you have an accusation like these, times, what is it now, 7 or 8? I've lost track. There's so many that are coming out of the woodwork. All of them seem to be tied somehow to the New York Democrat Party also, which leads me to believe that there's probably dozens more people that are just worried about reprisal affecting their job security working in the Democrat Party, going after the leader of New York's Democrat Party. But it's this sort of hypocrisy that goes on. If Andrew Cuomo were a Republican governor, they would have perp-walked him into a courthouse by now. Okay, beyond the sexual harassment allegations, you have a few allegations now that seem to go much further than that. There was actually touching involved. That seems to be more like sexual assault to me. You then also have the added benefit of the fact that he lied about sending your grandmother into a nursing home to her death times a few thousand. And then tried to cover that up. This guy was made a hero when he seems like he's maybe the biggest predator in American politics today. And yet, that's what you get if you're a Democrat. You can get away with it. No one's going to hold you accountable. The media will give you an Emmy Award while you're either sending Nana to her death or you're groping one of your staffers. That's what's going on here. And if this was done I'm in Florida right now. If Ron DeSantis did that as governor of Florida, he'd be in jail by now. But Andrew Cuomo will likely get away with it. Joe Biden won't even comment on it. Didn't stop Joe Biden from commenting on Brett Kavanaugh or any other Republican that's been accused of these things. Joe Biden probably not the best person to talk about these things given his history of sniffing children, etc. But that's what it is. It's a double standard that we have to correct. It cannot continue like this anymore. There should be equal justice under the law. Right now, there's only justice under the law if you're a Republican. You get justice served upon you, usually in a negative way. If you're a Democrat, you get away with whatever you want.
And you've written about this because it's aided and abetted by social media in some regard, who has taken a side on all of this. Cancel culture is alive and well. For some reason, they've decided that Andrew Cuomo is expendable right now, as the Wall Street Journal wrote in its op-ed. Take a step back for us, Don, and tell us about the policies as you see it in this first 60 days of the Biden administration. What strikes you most about all of the overturning of the Trump policies, whether it's immigration, whether it's this massive spending package, and we will be talking coming up about massive tax increases that are on the way?
Of course. I mean, I think it's probably the most disastrous first 60 days in the history of American politics, and certainly the presidency. He's trying to and will be able to say the border issue is Donald Trump's fault. We don't know how, because the border wall was working, the numbers were going down, there wasn't sort of the drug trafficking. All of these stories, by the way, Maria, you're hearing nothing about. The numbers of drugs coming across the border, human trafficking, sex trade smuggling, et cetera, that's going on right there. That was caused entirely by Joe Biden. When you say, congratulations, we won't be enforcing our laws, we will give you free health care, we will give you free education, what do you expect? They then say, you, America, you must shut down your business, you must wear a mask, you must do this, but if you're infected with COVID and you come across the border illegally, we're just going to release you into American society. What could possibly go wrong? That's the pseudoscience that's been driving the nonsense of this administration.
Well, I know that Florida feels a lot different tonight.
And I'm going to cut it off right there. I'll tell you what, I could not have said it better myself. That's Donald Trump Jr., folks, and he's absolutely right. Guys, that speaks for itself. He speaks for, I think, a lot of us who are frustrated with what's going on with this administration. Now I'm going to hit break here in a minute. Hopefully when I come back, I have my guest Robert E. Morningstar, and we're good to go and good to get the show on the road. So stick around. We'll be back here in a few, and just get ready. You there? Robert. Oh, oh, oh. I think I hear you. Hey, I hear you. We have contact. We have made contact. Houston, we've made contact. Cool. There's always a little staticky something going on. Are you indoors or outdoors? Cool. All right, we're still on break here. right, here we go. Here we go. Welcome back, everybody, to another hour on the show. And I want to thank my good friend Jesse Randolph for that return music. Oh, that's awesome. Jesse Randolph of UFOs Radio has become quite the musician these days. And he's provided some really good tunes for our show here, Inside the Jackals Head. Now, as I promised, my guest of the hour and a half, and maybe longer, we depends on how long he wants to go, because this is without a doubt one of the most brilliant minds that I've had on my show. And I say that to a lot of people, but I mean that to very few.
That's really, I love perfect honesty. That's great.
But you're one of the few that I actually mean that to. Welcome, Robert Morningstar, my good friend of a decade now, man. It's been 10 years. Can you believe that?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Angel. It's always a pleasure to be here, and it is a long friendship now. 10 years ago we started. You were interviewing me before I was even had a radio show. And it's a big part of our lives, so thank you again for inviting me.
I often kid because people ask me, who's you had the most on your podcast? Like, who's the person you've had the most? And I usually say, what's the toss-up between two people? And they're like, really, who? And I'm like, Robert Morningstar and Steve Bassett. And they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah. When I look back and I start to really think, who really has been, the person I've wanted to talk to the most? You two are always top of my list. I'm always thinking, man, when can I get him back? When can I get him back? But I know you're so busy. Now you got the podcast and stuff. That's awesome. I love the fact that you're doing the podcast. How long have you been at that now?
Oh, my own show I've had since 2017.
Yep.
So we're going to, it's going to be 4 years. This summer. It's on Revolution Radio on Sundays. I have two programs. One is called the Morningstar Report from 3 p.m. Eastern to 5 p.m. Eastern on Sundays. And on Mondays, I have the Right Stuff radio show, which is usually dedicated to history, science, heroism, dare I say. Another forbidden word in our time. Yeah. We talk about heroes, Apollo astronauts. We did a series on the Apollo missions, and
cool.
We actually did a radio play of the Apollo 10 mission and the music of the moon. It's a very interesting story that I broke it about, must be 12 years ago. I broke the story. I discovered a transcript of the Apollo 10 mission, and I'm reading this transcript, and these guys start talking about, hey, do you hear that weird music? You hear that weird outer spacey music? Yeah, and then the other guy doesn't want to talk about it. And Gene Cernan keeps coming back to it because it was happening while they were passing on the far side of the moon, and they weren't supposed to hear anything on the radios. And they start picking up these. Yeah, it's really amazing. So we found the transcript, and Scott Teeters and Andrew Curry and I played the astronauts. And we read the transcripts, and and since NASA hasn't owned up, giving us the real deal, I have a musician friend whose name is Laraji. He's a great composer, musician. He plays zither and bells, Tibetan bowls, and chimes, all kinds of very celestial. He used to call it celestial vibration. I used to perform with him back in the 80s. So anyway, I got him to come on.
Oh, cool.
And play the music of the moon as a backtrack or soundtrack as we were going over it. And I actually got it played with George and Uri played some of it on Coast to Coast one night when we were there together. Yeah, so the Right Stuff at 10 p.m. on Studio B and Sunday Studio A at 3 p.m. So if you want to join us, we always welcome you. And we'll have to have a chat on Revolution Radio too.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to make my presence more aware. It's tough because because you're busy as all heck. But when I run the network and I do the video stuff, and I do a lot of producing and stuff, it's hard to find time to interact with other people. But I do keep up with the interviews and stuff that you have been doing and the shows you've been doing. But it's good that you're really into that. And now with the last year that we've all kind of been well, for lack of a better word, in this plandemic, we've all been kind of like sheltered in. It's become more and more important, I think, to get on radio and podcast and talk about these things, because it really does seem like we're being silenced when most of the world wants the freedom of speech to continue, but the media wants to silence us, and this is the same media that are teasing us about disclosure and things like that. What the hell's going on?
Right.
What do you think is happening?
Well, Angel, I have always used a simile. I've always said that the cover-up of the JFK assassination and
Yep.
the doctrine of the Zapruder film and mind control, and I've said plainly, like a quip, I said anybody who still believes that what you see in the Zapruder film is real is no better off than a bunch of munchkins in Oz. And I hate to say it, but it really is. The Wizard of Oz has taken over so literally. I'm really amazed. Do you know what I saw today?
What'd
I
you see?
saw somebody exposing Biden's green screen. All of his appearances are green screen.
Bro.
Even the appearances where he appears to be walking on the lawn, or
Yes.
some lawn. It's not.
That's
Well,
why
listen,
I asked you, Robert, if you were paying attention to the show early in the first 30 minutes, because I actually played a clip of that, and it's funny you weren't watching. This is how in sync we usually are.
Oh, it's psychic, man.
Yeah,
If you're
this
playing
is
that show, if you
a sixth sense type of moment, because I played the clip and I played it a
it
few
is.
times, and I'm like, I want to hear what Robert has to say about this, because as a video editor, this is hysterical that they made this mistake.
Oh, but the one if you're playing on the radio, it's one thing, but they can't see what I saw
No,
unless you're
remember,
streaming the video.
we're no longer just on the radio. Right now we're on YouTube, D Live.
Oh, great.
We're everywhere except for,
Well,
we're not live on Rumble yet because they haven't made that available, but I'm waiting for them to make Rumble available because I'd love to go live on there.
yeah, well, Rumble's okay. I'm in Facebook jail again, and I've been using the
Yeah.
opportunity to start new platforms. But what was it we were talking about?
Well, remember, by the way, I posted your last show on your page because you are on Facebook jail, and I saw you pleading for help. You're like, please, somebody post this. And I was like,
it's great.
you're my buddy. I'm going to take this up for you, bro.
Great. My friends are keeping the stream going. They can't stop it,
Yeah.
I call what I do the torrent of truth. You're on my mailing list. My mailing list is called the torrent of truth.
Yep.
And we've taken that as a motto on our shows. So I encourage people to do that on my Facebook page, but I got thrown out. I've been thrown out repeatedly. Each time gets longer. It was 3 days, and then 3 days, and then 3 days, then 7 days, then 7 days. Now it's 30 days. And you know why? Because I published a Newsweek article from 2020, a year ago. Newsweek exposed that Dr. Fauci had paid for the research that produced the COVID-19 aberration in the Wuhan laboratory.
Well,
I wrote this story a year ago. I
yeah,
found this out
that's
a
the
year
one
ago.
with the Obama administration, right? Where they paid like how many millions to the Wuhan lab?
Well, listen, there was one good thing the Obama administration did, is that they stopped Dr. Fauci in his tracks. In 2015, they found out Dr. Fauci was doing research at NIH, gain-of-function research on coronaviruses, trying to make them more easily transmissible and more lethal. And they said to him, what are you, crazy? This thing doesn't pass between humans. Why are you trying to enhance its potential to become an epidemic? Not even thinking about pandemics. Why you want to potentize a virus that is currently harmless to humans? It can't pass between humans. It's an animal virus. Why are you doing that? It's criminal. So they declared it illegal. So what did Dr. Fauci do? He packaged up his research, his baby. He's a real Frankenstein. He packaged it up. He took his main assistant in his laboratory in Washington, a Chinese microbiologist.
His Igor.
Sent him to Wuhan, and he paid he filtered, directed $3.7 million twice. That's $7.4 million to the Wuhan laboratories between 2015 and 2017. They continued doing the work that he started. He's a criminal. That guy belongs beyond San Quentin. Forget it. This guy belongs in Nuremberg. What they have done to the human race with this pandemic, and we have the paper trail, man. We have the paper trail of the plans all the way back to its inception. I won't go back to time and date. I will say this. In 2018, Denmark, Canada, and I believe it was Uruguay were buying COVID-19 test kits. They were ordering COVID-19 test kits when COVID-19 wasn't discovered for another year. That's how big the sham is. But let me
do you hold on real quick? Let me stop you right there. Do you think this is part of the reason why Operation Warp Speed went by so quickly? Because normally to come up with a vaccine, and let's just call it that for now, because I have a difference of opinion with the term vaccine as it comes to this. But let me touch on this real quick. Do you think that's the reason why they were able to get this out within a year? And do you think that Trump was being fooled by Fauci and by the World Health Organization, and he was used like a pawn in a sense?
All the way. He had our best interests at heart. He understood vaccine in terms of the old technology. They had this hidden, waiting in the wings, and they fooled the president. Fauci is a fraud. That's why I gave him the label Dr. Fakey. Yeah. And let me tell you, psychologically, Fauci, I'm going to say it, his mentality is diabolical. And if you study his persona and his postures, his attitudes, and his name, F-A-U-C-I, you're very close. A C can be pronounced hard, like a K, or it can be pronounced soft, like an S.
Yep.
If you think of it as an S, you have F-A-U-S-I. Just cross the I make it a T, and you've got Faust right there. I think people's names speak volumes, including my own and yours, Angel. Right?
Mm-hmm.
They reflect something.
Correct. Yeah.
They also mold character. But this character, Dr. Fakey, he is diabolical. He belongs in the Nuremberg trials. They have consciously killed millions of people. And he's got a lot of cohorts. The governor of New York. Let me say this openly.
Pepe Le Cuomo.
I have been bothered. Governor Cuomo, and his edict to force nursing homes to take back patients who had COVID in the hospital, force them and then lock them up. There's something very sinister around that whole operation. Now, and I've been saying it from day one, there's something wrong with what he's doing here.
Oh yeah, we've both been on that bandwagon talking about that. In fact, for the last year since I first heard the report, I've been on this show saying he's had blood on his hands, and it's amazing how the liberal media has been giving him a pass. And it's funny that now they're finally addressing the situation, and it really boggles the mind. Why now? After they've literally turned this guy into like the next president of the United States. I mean, at one point they're saying he set the gold standard on how to handle the coronavirus. Yeah. Remember that?
Yeah. Well, what I wanted to say is this, folks. From the moment that it started to happen, when we knew what he had done was criminal, these are at least 6 points that led me to the conclusion I'm going to give you. First, the edict, forcing the nursing homes to take back the people. Secondly, not letting anyone visit them. Nobody gets to see them. Thirdly, they die unseen by their loved ones. Then when they die, no autopsies conducted. Then at the funeral, a hole in the ground, a 60-foot radius.
If they're even
No
lucky
one
to
can
get a
approach it.
funeral, Robert, because a lot of people, and I know this for a fact, my uncle who passed away recently, they were like cremation. You know, that was their advice, that they were like, don't even bother with the funeral, just cremate him, because he was in a nursing home.
There were a lot of funerals. There were a lot of funerals in New York,
Yep.
and it was a hole in the ground and a 60-foot radius around that nobody could approach it. Then there is the reward to the hospitals of $39,500 for people who died of COVID. So
Yep.
they start
Yep.
jacking up the event, right? They jacked everything up, from a car falling on somebody to motorcycle accidents. A guy
Yeah.
shot himself in the head.
You notice
All
that
COVID, right?
that nobody dies of the regular flu anymore. You notice that, like,
Yeah, no, nobody died of flu last year. Nobody's dying of flu this year, right?
yeah,
So then there's $13,500 given to people who die to hospitals for people who die of pneumonia. Then there's the refrigerator trucks. So take that whole bundle of that whole mystery, right? No one sees the victim. I'm going to call them victims. No one sees the victim. No autopsy on the victim. Nobody around when they quote unquote, bury the victim. Right? Rewards to the hospitals for mass deaths, 13,500 and 39,500, and refrigerator trucks. We're dealing with the biggest organ harvesting crime that has ever been conducted. And the
yes,
Chinese
yep,
are the masters of the market in organ harvesting.
yep,
And people didn't
yep.
believe me. This was crazy. Oh, Robert, that's really crazy. You know what happened? Just 2 weeks ago, a man died in Michigan having received a transplanted lung, and the lung had COVID. So, folks, when the Nazis were planning the extermination of the Jews, the infrastructure was being constructed right in front of everybody. The railroads were being built to Auschwitz and Dachau and Birkenau and all the names I know, right?
And
And
a bunch
people
I
know,
cannot pronounce, by the way.
right? And
Yeah.
then in the camps, there were workmen who were
Mm-hmm.
building, 2,000 ovens.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they say, like, wow, who's going to eat that much bread,
Yeah.
But
You know,
it was terrifying. They all knew
real
what was
quick,
happening, but nobody said a word.
real quick, Robert. You know what's funny? I got into a conversation with a friend of mine earlier tonight, Brandon, who I'm pretty sure you're familiar with. You probably talked to him on the show here, as he's been a sidekick a few times. But we got into a conversation because he saw a post I did on the way China and the CCP deal with the Uyghur Muslims and the Falun Gong, and the way they're organ harvesting, and how this is an issue. And he said, well, China has been doing stuff for years. Why is it a problem now? And my answer was, and I'm sure you might want to add an answer to this, but my answer to him was, because now finally the media is catching up to it and people are starting to talk about it. They've been a problem for decades, but it really has been the last 10, 15 years where we're seeing what's really been going on out of China. And in the last 2 years, it's almost like the veil's dropped, and now we're really seeing what's going on with China, almost like transparently. And they cannot hide anymore what's happening over there.
Because President Trump exposed it.
Correct.
President Trump
Yeah.
exposed it. There was a big sham and a subservience to China economically. But, folks, we have undergone the greatest and worst biological warfare attack that the world has ever seen. Let's face it. We have been attacked with a weapon of mass destruction by the Chinese under a ruse that it was an accident. This was no accident. When you close off the airport in your country to flights within your country means you don't want anything to get out of that city into your country. But when you leave that airport open to international traffic, you know that they wanted something to get out of Wuhan and across the whole world. It's as plain as day. And people are being stupid. I'm really ashamed of my fellow Americans in large degree who have really lived up to the derogatory term of sheeple. They have been
Yes, sir.
cowed by mass mind control into a wild stampede and a panic. You know, like lemmings racing off the cliffs,
Yeah.
racing to be first in line to get the vaccine. And as you said, this is not a vaccine. Angel, you and I know the definition of a vaccine, and this does not fit the definition of a vaccine.
Nope.
But the reason that the CDC is going along with it is that as long as they call it a vaccine, they are not liable for ill consequences of its use.
We're
If people use a
basically being
genetic
used as
modification technology,
that's correct. But we're basically being used as guinea pigs. And what's amazing about this is you're absolutely right. We cannot sue them if our loved one dies because they just took the vaccine. And it's scary because my dad was just talked into taking the vaccine by his doctor after me and him had this discussion, Robert, about him not taking it. And he said he
yeah,
wasn't going to take it. He was going to wait a while, maybe 6 months to a year, which is the logical thing, right? That's what I'm
that's
doing.
the best thing to do.
Right, and
You know what I say?
his
Hey,
doctor said, no, no, take it now, take it now. It's safe, and that's scary because when your doctor says, well, take it, take it. It's almost like they're obligating you, and you should really leave it to the patient to decide for themselves. And my father, who's 71, took the first, vaccine, and then they announced that the boxer Marvin Hagler passed away a week after taking the vaccine. And I reminded my dad, look, your cousin just died. My second cousin or uncle, as I call him, just passed away last month after he took the vaccine. Also, you sure you made the right decision here? Because we had this conversation, and he said that the
yeah,
doctor was very convincing, and that he's been his doctor for the last 15, 20 years, so he took his word for it. But well, I'm not saying for people who want to take the vaccine, by all means, it's your freedom to do so, but you have to understand this has not gone through proper testing, which normally is a few years. This has been, like the name said, Operation Warp Speed. It's been put out there, and we're literally the guinea pigs. And the proof of that, like Robert said, is the fact that if anything happens, we can't sue them because they're not liable. But this is all based on them making a ton of money. That's why you have Bill Gates involved and all these corporations that are behind this because they're going to make a ton of money. And Robert, the thing that scares me the most is when I read the Moderna website. It literally describes this as more of like sort of like an operating system, not so much a vaccine.
exactly. They use that word.
Yeah,
That's right. They use that word operating system just as we use hardware and software and
right.
operating system. And that's what they've done. They've hijacked a segment of the human operating system, and they're going to put another code in there. I'd like to say quite openly, I've been studying virology independently
Hmm.
since 1980. And I can tell you folks, the way that the messenger RNA vaccine works in invading the human body
Yep.
is exactly the same mechanism that HIV uses in its invasion of the human body. What they call the retrovirus in the HIV is basically a similar thing, a strip of messenger RNA. They call it reverse transcriptase. This, the virus, HIV, will come in and deposit a protein into the cell, and it will split open. Let me make it in layman's terms. It splits open, and then it starts to hijack DNA from the cell to compose another. It's as if it's a
Correct.
template, okay?
Right.
It's a
Right.
template, a plan. Then it aggregates to itself what it needs in nucleotides to create the provirus, which is the thing that causes AIDS. Well, this thing operates exactly the same way. It goes into your body, and it's a strip of messenger RNA. Think of it as a ticker tape, okay? This is an easy way to understand how this thing works. Think of the messenger RNA as a long strip of ticker tape, right, with perforations on it and a code, right? So it goes in, and it is inserted into the cells of the human body to pass through the cell wall by wrapping it up in something called PEG, polyethylene glycol. Yes, antifreeze, and a lipid, a certain lipid. So that makes it possible for it to slide through the cell wall. Then it goes in, the lipid and the PEG, the antifreeze, dissolves, lets out the messenger RNA. Now, the messenger RNA is floating around in there. And inside the cell, we have these readers that are called ribosomes. So the ribosome catches the little strip and starts processing it, and it starts to manufacture at the other end of it, a protein comes out. That protein that they're creating is a spike from the coronavirus. The coronavirus is called the coronavirus because it has a crown, and it's a crown of spikes. Think of it as the crown of thorns, okay? The crown of thorns. Yep. So this thorn sticks into a cell, it fuses with it, then it sends in the messenger RNA. So it starts to produce these in abundance, and the mechanism keeps working so that now your body is producing spike glycoproteins exactly like the ones that are on the outside of the coronavirus, and it lines the cell. They go back out of the cell and start to line the cells, and your body starts to attack your cells, which are now crowned with the spike protein, as if you are a coronavirus on the inside. You were talking about doctors. Let me talk about Hank Aaron. Physically fit, happy, cheerful, patriotic, flexing his muscles, happy to take the vaccine to show his fellow African Americans how safe it was. 18 days later, he died in his sleep. No cause, right? Oh, except it wasn't the vaccine, right? Oh, sure. So then, talking about doctors, Dr. Gregory Michael Neckelman, Florida, Miami, Florida, obstetrician. I know this from a letter his wife wrote to Joseph Farrell. Dr. Neckelman believed in vaccines, so he volunteered for it. He was 56 years old, happy, healthy, hearty. 2 days after he received the vaccine, he was standing in the shower and he looked at his toes and he had blood blisters on top of his toes. And he recognized that as an MT. That was not a good sign.
Wow.
Races to the emergency room. They take him in. They do a blood test. They found no blood platelets in his body.
Wow.
So then they infused him with blood platelets and they did another blood test. They found no blood platelets. His wife says in this letter to Joseph Farrell, and there you can find it on Giza Death Star. They gave him infusions of blood platelets for 14 days until the hospital ran out of blood platelets to infuse. And in all the blood tests, they weren't showing up, which led me to quip and say, damn, it sounds to me like they injected a vampire into this doctor's body and it was sucking up his blood from the inside. Where did it go? This is just one instance of the consequences. They call it thrombocytopenia, the blood clot thing. And now, the collusion is so great, the conspiracy is so great that some power on this planet has everyone cowed and scared. Every government leader in Europe bows and bends and scrapes to whatever this thing is.
I mean, do you think this, Robert? Do you think this has a lot more to do with the organ harvesting situation with China than the West is aware of? Because I think that's a major part of it. But I think there's more than that. I think population control overall is why they're doing this. And I find it ironic, by the way, and this is just a comment, that Dr. Fauci has been around since the AIDS virus. He was on board with that. He was, of course, around where they did the breaking of the Human Genome Project, and H01N1 with Obama and his administration. Obama is one that actually put him on the administration directly, and he worked. I think he even got a medal from Obama at one point, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So it's funny that he's been kind of like in the as a figurehead almost in a lot of what's happened in the last 30, 40 years in medicine. And only until Trump came along did the entire world start to realize who Fauci was and what he is all about. Now we're starting to see more and more, like you said, that he is probably not playing honestly here with us.
By the way, I'm glad you mentioned going back to HIV. More people died from Dr. Fauci's medicines than died from the actual virus
Yeah.
of HIV.
Yeah.
The medicines that he did were poisons that killed more people. He is a very well-hated person in on Broadway and Hollywood. The homosexual community, they know what really took all of their friends, our friends, down. You know, some wonderful people died in the 80s and 90s and the 2000s following his prescription, and it was actually AZT that was really knocking the majority of them. You know, like look at Magic Johnson. Here's another thing about the vaccine. I really want to say this. Obviously, not everyone is succumbing right away. Okay, so there is a long-term aspect to this threat, to this menace. But just as in HIV, people don't know this, but there are some people that are totally immune to HIV. For HIV to take over an immune system, three things have to be present. Has to be the HIV virus. There has to be a mycoplasma present. Mycoplasma is like a microscopic fungus. And
Right.
the victim has to have a certain blood type that has this factor called CD4. People who have CD4 blood factor are susceptible to HIV. People who have CD8 are less susceptible to HIV. They can have the virus in them, they'll have no symptoms. But the person that has the CD4, the mycoplasma, and the HIV, it's a slow attrition, because what that does is it attacks your immune system. It attacks the T cells, the helper T cells and the killer T cells. They do the battle. They go to try to save you. But this Dr. Fauci has been involved in fraud since the very beginning. When HIV came out, it wasn't called HIV. They didn't know what was causing certain symptoms. The first symptom, the first disease that they found, novel disease, was called Kaposi sarcoma. It was a horrible lesion on the arms or the legs or the face or any part of the body where it broke out that would start to consume the body from the inside out. It was a skin cancer. That was called Kaposi sarcoma. A great search was made for a couple of years, and the man who ultimately discovered the HIV was a French microbiologist named Dr. Luc Montagnier. So he discovered it, and he shared the idea with the CDC. He informed them, this is what I found. They ignored it and ignored it and ignored it. And all of a sudden, Fauci and his friend, Dr. Robert Gallo, who was then the head of NIH, came out, and Gallo claimed that he had discovered it. And he had taken the samples that Luc Montagnier had sent, and he claimed discovery. Montagnier went to court and sued him, and the court trial, the contest in court dragged out for 8 years. And then at the end of 8 years, Gallo owned up to it. But it was Gallo and Fauci. Fauci was always there, his right-hand man, talking against Montagnier's discovery and, boosting up Dr. Gallo, while they worked on, quote unquote, the cure or the treatment. And so it turns out that Dr. Fauci owns the patent on coronavirus SARS-2.
And that's
which is the anti-sleep.
Yeah.
Isn't that something? But you know what? When you think about it, How can somebody own a patent on a virus if he didn't create it?
Yes.
That's my
Correct.
question. You
Yeah.
see,
Yeah.
and so another thing, Judicial Watch in recent weeks has succeeded in obtaining Dr. Fauci's emails from November and
No kidding.
December
Yeah.
of 2019, and they see that he entered into a new form of non-disclosure agreement with the Chinese Communist Party, and he also agreed to write laudatory articles praising China for how they were handling the COVID epidemic as it was in Wuhan. Remember, it was an epidemic in Wuhan. It became a pandemic when they exported it to Italy, primarily in Europe, and of course, San Francisco, everybody, Canada. Canada is a big stooge for the Chinese. It's gotten so bad that I quipped to my Canadian co-host Andrew Curry. I quipped to him. I said, your country's so messed up, I'm not calling it Canada anymore. I call it Chinada. Because Justin Trudeau is a sock puppet for the Red Chinese. He even said publicly that he admires the dictatorship of China because of the way it was able to turn their economy around on a dime. They're mad.
Yeah.
Quite insane people are running the show.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So we have to push back. And one of my pushbacks, if you will bear with me, is I ring the Liberty Bell every day here in New York. We have a ritual at 7 o'clock in my neighborhood that we have two Tarzans come out and start doing the Tarzan call. I'm one of them. I started it. But it started with thanking first responders. Remember? They wanted everybody in the city. We were on the lockdown and show, the cities together, all of that. Well, most of it died down except on our blog because we got into something very positive amongst ourselves. And one is I started with the Tarzan call, and some other guy started calling it back. And then somebody started beating the drum, and I started beating the Liberty Bell. So I'd like to take this moment to share the sound of the Liberty Bell with all of you. I'm going to give you 3 rings instead of the 7 that I usually do.
Go for it, and then I have a couple questions for you. Go for it.
Very good. Thank you. So every day at 7 o'clock,
yes, my master.
No matter what the weather, I open the window and we do the Tarzan call. I'll spare you the Tarzan call, although I do love to do it. It's very invigorating, and it's great. Other people start to do it on the street. It's really great. I once called it out. There was an old senior citizen, African-American man going by with a cane and scooped over, and I said, "Oh, I hope I don't scare him, because I really flash. I practice with Johnny Weissmuller, I rehearsed. So I let it out, and he stops in his tracks, and you know what he did? He called back, his version. And
was he pumping the chest? Ah!
Yeah, he lifted himself up. I'm saying he was bent over the cane, and when he heard it, he straightened his body up, and then he let it out. And another night, sometimes at night on the way back from my classes in Riverside Park, I get to a part where there's nobody around. It's in the dark. Nobody can see me. So who the hell knows, right? So I really let it out. And guess what? 3 people sitting on a bench about 50 feet away. They all spontaneously called it out.
That's awesome. Yeah, I want to circle back here, and that's our new favorite phrase here on the show. We're going to circle back. Like,
Sure.
like Jim Podesky. So we're going to circle back for a second. In fact, we kind of like went off track here earlier, and I wanted to really get your opinion on this. And you were about to talk about it, and then we kind of like went into a different segue. But I want to go back to the video of Biden, on the lawn that looks like he's on green screen. Remember, we didn't finish talking about that.
There are 2 now. Yes, I saw another one where he was walking through the halls of Congress, and his head was disappearing. The top of his head was disappearing
Yeah.
with the background. But for those of the people who haven't seen the video, he's pretending to be talking to reporters, and the reporters are pretending to be there holding microphones. So the microphones are in the foreground of the scene, and he's about, supposedly 7 to 10 feet back, and he starts gesticulating and pointing and moving his hand, and his hand starts to cover the microphone. And
It looks so fake, Robert. And the funny thing is, he's leaning in, so you know he's far away. And the microphone, I mean, anybody with just normal vision that sees that, it says, come on, man.
Yeah, just like he said it.
Yeah.
But he would have to have I would say, a 7-foot long arm to be able to do what he was doing.
And all pixelated too, and all pixelated, which is that's the funny part. When you actually like blow up the image and you look at the way the arm's moving and stuff, you can tell that it's in front of a green screen.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's why I said it's total Wizard of Oz. Ignore the man behind the curtain. This is the great and powerful Oz has spoken. So that was, what? That was the deal. That video that you played is the Toto moment. It's the Toto moment in the Wizard of Oz, Joe Biden's exposure. You did it on your show tonight. I want you to know that that's like the Toto pulling back the curtain, exposing the Wizard of Oz. And that thing has to go viral. And this guy has to be ridiculed out of office. You know what? Let me warn you about the plot.
Go ahead.
There is a huge plot. Oh, yeah. The plot is on the part of Nancy Pelosi. Mm-hmm. Nancy Pelosi wants, above all things, to become president of the United States.
Yep.
And her plan is to usher out the old geezer Joe Blow Biden, right? 25th Amendment, very convenient. But then when Kamala Harris gets in there, zap. That's when they're going to get her and bump her out or off. See? And that's her ascension. That's what we have to do.
Oh, definitely. I'm 100% with you, because Kamala Harris is the perfect stooge for that also. I mean, there's so much baggage there, and we're seeing more and more people that are opposed to her even sniffing the presidency, because she is so progressive and so fake also, Robert.
Let's not call them progressive anymore. They are Marxist, Leninist, communists.
Yeah.
That's what they are.
Yeah.
And like I said the other day, if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck.
These people are definitely quacking
like
and
walking.
walking.
Walks like a duck and quacks like a duck. It's a communist. So let's not mince any words, because we are in a full engagement. And now, our only hope, my hope, is that they are so corrupt and they are so ambitious that they are going to do themselves in, and they are going to eat their own, like they're eating up Cuomo. All this malarkey about sexual advances is just a cover on the murder, on the crime, the big crime.
But I love the fact that when push comes to shove, though, Robert, and you gotta admit, when you sit back and you just look at the events it's playing out, I love the fact that they're eating their own, and while they think they're being clever, the rest of us that are watching this are, and for those who are oblivious to the fact, who are not sheeple or sold out, they just don't know better. They're starting to become awares. I think that's why Trump got such bigger numbers this past election than he did in 2016, because more and more people are becoming aware of the deception that was going on the left. And I think actually, Biden, this whole thing with him being in office, the way the election ended up, Trump having the next few years not to kind of sit back and say, okay, whatever happened on November 3rd, it happened. Whoever Biden ended up as president, it happened that way. I'm not going to get too into the skinny of how it might have happened.
Well,
but
we have good news.
Let's just say that right now Trump has a great point of view to just sit back and let this play out, and let the American people see for themselves the shenanigans and the evil that's going on from these folks. I mean, just look at the executive orders that Biden put into play. 40 in the first week or something like that. A guy who said a year ago that any president who leads through executive orders is a dictator, and that's like a few years ago actually when Trump first took office, and he had like 5 or 6 under his belt, and Biden now in the first week has like 40. So he's telling you right off the bat that he's working as a dictatorship. Whether he's in charge or not, this is what it is. And he said that, loud and clear about Trump, which wasn't true then. But if he said it about Trump and he's, not doubled or tripled, I mean, this guy is on a scale for executive orders that is unheard of. And what does that say then about Biden?
Yeah, but who's writing?
That's exactly, that's what I said. But it doesn't matter. The point is, it's a dictatorship.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But they're now they're suing him to reopen the XL pipeline, and Montana, North and South Dakota, Oklahoma, Texas, Mississippi, and a couple of other states have passed laws saying that they will not obey any executive order from Joe Biden that is unconstitutional. So that's very important. The states. See, the Constitution is a wonderful instrument, and it has a self-defense mechanism in it, and we're seeing it play out. What I wanted to say about good news for us who really believe that President Trump did win the election, yesterday a Michigan district court decreed that, yes, indeed, it was against the law to change the mail-in balloting fairly on the part of the Michigan Secretary of State, who changed the laws on her own and then gave guidance on interpretation of signatures. She sent a directive to the people who are going to be checking signatures that any similarity of any kind in the two signatures was to be accepted as a valid signature in the mail-in ballots. But the judge decreed that Michigan's election was illegal. So where do we go now? It means that
that's the question.
If it had been done in a timely manner, it would have devolved to the legislature and the governor to choose the elector. So, hey, take those Michigan electoral votes away from Biden, and let's see what happens next.
But is it too little, too late now, though? I mean, he's been sworn into office, quote unquote. I mean, isn't it a little too late at this point?
Well, I think that there's a rule, even after a race is won, that if one of the people or the horses in the race cheated, like Ben Johnson in the Olympics, or drugging up the horses, when they do the urinalysis, the person is disqualified,
Even but would that apply here? I mean, is that constitutional? Would that apply on this?
Well, you see, I don't know. This is the thing. I said to my friend in Michigan who sent me this information, I said, well, what happens now? I'm curious to see how does this play out. Oh, by the way, Michigan, the judge declared that it was illegal for them to use the mail-in balloting and change the directives. And in Wisconsin, they could not present the chain of possession documents for 600,000 Biden votes, or 600,000 votes. You see?
Yep.
They all knew it, but the cover-up, the power of the mass media to fake people out, that's all they did. They faked some of the people out. You know who they faked out? The 30% who think that Biden won the election.
That, and you know what? I not only that, I think that certain players like Lynn Wood.
You aren't faked out. I'm not faked out.
No. But check this out. I think certain people like Lynn Wood and Sidney Powell and some of the QAnon stuff that happened, I think that even was misinformation put out to confuse the subject and tie in to one narrative, when really the mail-in ballots was, to me, the most egregious thing and the most abusive thing of the election. To have anybody send mail a ballot in, I mean, it could come from anywhere. Not only that, the mail-in harvesting of votes. And Robert, this is the best one. I don't know if you're familiar with Crowder. who has a fantastic show on the internet. He had a segment recently, which it was really funny. He picked out a bunch of votes that you get the address of the voters and through the FOIA and on this one election, and he went literally. He had his staff go to every one of the addresses from mail-in ballots, and he showed the actual ballot, the address. He actually showed that they actually went to the place, and a lot of these were like in dead malls and parking lots and not real places, no
And
real
post
people.
offices. Some of
Yeah,
them were post offices themselves, right?
and
No, the fraud was incredible.
yeah,
And the
amazing.
network that pulled it off was really a massive criminal RICO operation, racketeering in corporate operations.
Yeah,
So, and also the menacing, the trickery, the moving of the fences, forcing people not to be inside, claiming they couldn't get within 6 feet of the table, all that BS, man. Who would put up with that? Only sheeple would stand for that,
yeah,
and they're going to pay. Actually, see, when you don't combat evil in the moment, when you don't expose it, it has an opportunity to reorganize itself and shield itself with more layers of protection. And what could be more symbolic than them surrounding the entire capital area in concentric circles of circular fences with razor wire on them? They've effectively, see, we can look at it two ways. They're excluding the public, but they also have already put themselves in jail.
yeah. You know what's funny about that
So
though,
if the
Robert?
military needs to find anybody, they know exactly
Yeah,
where they are already.
but you know what's funny? This is from a group of people that are saying that we don't need border walls, right? And the southern borders. So then, why do you need a wall around the Capitol? What, Nancy Pelosi? Why do you need a wall around your house?
Right.
Because you need to protect yourself, right? Because people are mad at you, right? Well, guess what? The people that are flooding into this country, do you think they might be sending over the happiest people with us that love us? No, a lot of people that are coming in, besides the human trafficking and the drugs and all that stuff, are people that in their own country they march and they yell often, "Death to America." I mean, these are not people that love us.
I know.
At all. Yeah, they don't love this country, and they're right now saying, "Yeah, come on in. Mi casa, su casa, step over." And I'm Latino. I got into this country legally, went through the process, decades ago. I'm a U.S. citizen. I've been in this country for decades, since I was 2, and because of the way my mother did it, God bless her soul, we were able to get into this country the right way. But and I
Right.
feel for immigrants who want a better life, but that's a small percentage of what's coming across the border. A lot of my Latino friends from other parts of the country are aware of this, and even like I know Venezuelans, Robert, and I know people from South America who I've worked with, and they're all saying the same thing. They're saying, just because they're coming from our country doesn't mean that we're on board with what's happening, because we know that there's a lot of people that have good intentions and just want a better life, but that's like maybe 15% of what's coming through. The rest is not good. And that's what I think Trump tried to get at, and he got vilified for it. And it's sad because we're seeing it now, and we see, an uptick of crime, rape, all this activity happening, and the border crossing are going through, the roof again. The numbers are skyrocketing. And what is the left now trying to do? They're trying to blame it on the past administration, when
Yeah.
the numbers
Right.
were low when Trump was in office. It went down because we're building more and more of the wall. Now that's not being done anymore. They're not constructing the wall since the Biden administration took over, and they're trying
Well,
to
actually,
defund that. And
Texas, and New Mexico and Arizona took some advice I put on the airways. That those states have to finish their own walls with their own resources. And
right,
Texas and New Mexico and Arizona have gotten to work on it. But that's not going to solve this problem that's
no,
already here. And listen to this. The narco traffickers are now an army. They've been outfitted by the Red Chinese
yeah,
with Chinese military uniforms, armor, automatic weapons, Humvees, Chinese Humvee versions of what we showed them how to make.
Yeah.
And they are all over that border. So, you know what? It's really ironic how prophetic an artist can be. Do you remember the man who fell to earth, David Bowie?
Oh,
Remember the
yeah,
movie?
yeah, of course, yeah.
And he had the 50 television. He had 50 television screens on there simultaneously because his mind was so quick. He could look at 50 televisions and absorb all that information.
Hmm.
Well, in one of those screens, as I was watching, if you paid attention to a particular one, there was one about the war in Mexico and how the troops from Mexico were crossing the border, and they were showing, machine gunned vehicles and half tracks and a real hot war happening on the Mexican border. And I looked at these Chinese outfitted troops. I call them troops now, but they're just the same narco traffickers that have been, preying on the entire Southwest. But now they're all uniformed and they're really, really heavily armed with Chinese-made automatic weapons. The other day, a
And
friend
these
of
are
mine
vicious
on the
people. I
radio
mean,
said,
these are people that they're not playing around. When they come at you, they're talking about death and beheading, and you're gone. So
yes, it's corrupt.
yeah,
Some of the things I've seen that through. The president was absolutely right
yeah.
about MS-13. They were animals. I've seen them eviscerate a person. It's horrible to even to admit it. Somebody, to give me the wake-up call, they sent me a video and they said, "Yeah, look at this," and it was MS-13 had taken some Mexican victim, and first they stuck the knife under his chest muscles and they sliced those off.
Mm.
Then they separated this flesh from his abdomen and exposed his intestines. And the guy was screaming and dying as I watched it. And it was the most horrible thing you could ever imagine, an inhuman thing. And these guys were doing that all over Mexico, all over the Southwest, all over Long Island. And the president was absolutely right. So he sent in INS, immigration, ICE, and they cleaned up Long Island,
Yeah.
and Long Island was very grateful. I'm going to tell you something. I think that President Trump even won New York. I'm not kidding.
I'm not. It's funny because I did a show before the election with a host called Naroki Five, and I said on his show, and I said on this show also, that I think there's going to be two that we're going to flip, but there was going to be controversial. We might not hear about it. And I thought New York and California were the big two, which are going to start going red. And New York, remember, they closed their polls early, and nobody called them on it. Of course, you had Cuomo and de Blasio, who are very anti-Trump, and they're not going to help you out in any way, shape, or form. Most of the judges there are very liberal, so they're not going to help you either. In fact, most of the so-called cases against Trump now, post his presidency, are coming from New York for that reason. And they're digging through his taxes and all kinds of stuff because these are liberal prosecutors and judges who want to see him hung because they don't want to see him run again in 2024. And California, I saw it the same way because California has been rebelling against Governor New Scum, as I call him, and
Mussolini.
Yeah,
Mussolini.
New Scum Mussolini. There you go. And of course, he's the nephew of Nazi Nancy Nasty Pelosi, and or the Wicked Witch of the West, as a lot of my friends like to call her now. And
But he was raised by the Gettys. Do you know that Gavin Newsom was raised by the Getty family?
yeah,
It's almost like
these are all mafia
his
related.
family
Yeah,
him
they
as
go
a
back to the mafia.
boy
Yeah,
toy to them.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I was getting at. They all go back to mafia relations, and folks, if you want to get even deeper than that, look at this is something again I addressed on this show, Robert, and people can go back and fact check me on this. A year ago, before elections, I was talking about how Georgia was going to be a big problem because of the people in charge of Georgia, including one Keisha Lance Bottoms, who grew up in the streets. She grew up around gangsters, and her friends are people like Killer Mike, T.I., who is a police informant and an ex-gangbanger, and she grew up with these folks around here. In fact, the last few years, when before the presidency switched, before November 3rd, before the election, before the Kung Flu, we had a lot of media coverage of what was going on politically, and T.I. stepped forward, and he went against Candace Owens, where she owned him. Robert, if you see if that video on YouTube, was amazing. She just destroyed him. But T.I., who's an ex-gangbanger, grew up with Keisha Lynch Bottoms, and I started calling Georgia as a place where come election there's going to be a problem. And sure enough, the counties in Georgia where are heavily Democratic are the ones that were a problem, just like I called it, including the judge who threw out one of the I guess one of the disputes, who was Stacey Abrams' sister.
Right, right.
So I mean,
Georgia's really interesting. It's a very violent place. It's very violent, and for people who want to understand the treason or the betrayal of Governor Kemp and the Secretary of State, Raffensperger, you have to put yourself in their shoes, and this is what really happened. Governor Kemp was threatened with death, not his death, his daughter's death. They murdered her boyfriend. The boyfriend drives his daughter and goes out on dates. They murdered the boyfriend by putting an explosive in his car. And then an investigator, a special investigator that was investigating the death of the boyfriend, was shot in the head. So that's why Governor Kemp was quivering and lying to the world, lying to the president, because he wanted to save his daughter's life.
They have no choice. They have no choice. Again, because they're in a place that is right now ran by street gangs. I mean, that's really what's going on. And when you look at it, you connect the dots there and other parts of the country that, the swing states, they were all heavily Democratic. Those are the ones that are the issue. And they all, when you tie them up, they all have tie-ins to street gangs, which is like, again, modern mafia, right? And what do these street gangs all connect to? The mafia, Pelosi's, Newscom, these Congress people, these people behind the scenes are the ones running the stuff.
Stacey Abrams is nothing more than a big fat gangster mama.
Yeah. I found it hysterical, Robert, when she thought that she was going to be, asked to be the VP for Biden, and they brought her on TV, and she had this like smile from ear to ear, and she's like, "He's gonna name me. He's gonna name me," and then he was like, I just want to bring her on to thank her for her hard work," or some, he mumbled something or other. And then he went off a tangent on something else, and she just stood there like with this like confused look on her face, like, "Wait a second, did I not get just brought out to like be asked to be his running mate, or am I being put here as a joke?" And I'm like, "Have you looked in the mirror? Because you're kind of a joke."
I'm sorry, I think just to be kind, you are what you eat. So but she is a gangster. Look at that, with her sister being the judge that determined the outcome of the petition or the lawsuit. It's just so corrupt. It boggles the mind, and I think it is good, actually, that America is going to have to wake up to the fact that they were fooled on many levels.
Yeah.
The fools that really did vote for him, and then the fools who didn't have the wherewithal to stand up against the fraud in the moment, like Governor Kemp, because it shows, if they cowed him that way.
Right. But look what happened with Ted Wheeler and all these other folks, and they got bamboozled when they thought they were on the side of the folks who were orchestrating the violence last year, and then they were like, "Nah, screw you, man. If you don't bow down to us, we're gonna run right through you and run against you." And so, I mean, again, this is where the left is eating the left, to the point that it's not even if it's Republican or Democrat. If you're in one of these cities or one of these states, if you don't bow down to these folks, they're going to run right through you. And the problem is, we don't have strong leaders in these areas to say, you know what, no, you're not going to run a
You
chop
know,
zone here. This is not going to be allowed. There's not going to be an autonomous zone. There's no more summer of love. If you're going to go and do these things that are criminal offenses, you're going to be arrested, prosecuted, and thrown in prison. That's the rule of law. And the thing is, we have weak
we should
leaders
talk
that
a
are
little
allowing
bit
this to
about the
happen.
word police.
Oh, go
We
ahead.
should talk a little bit about the word police and how the transgender movement is grown too powerful politically. They're trying to degender our society,
Well,
which is
it's
a
even deeper
complete
than that because
perversion.
the whole defund police is they want to replace it with Sharia law, and that's really what's happening. If you look at
Yeah.
there's a
Well,
big
that
there's,
much of Michigan, much of Michigan.
yeah.
Hey, listen, you want to know something that was outrageous? I watched the whole process. You know, the election, the court battles, the hearings with Giuliani,
Oh, we all did.
and I watched the Electoral College. I got up early to watch the Electoral College, see what was going to happen with those people. So I watched Pennsylvania, and then I watched another state, Maryland. And then I walked out of the room. When I came back into the room, they were in Michigan. I couldn't believe my eyes. In Michigan, the governor of Michigan and the electors were meeting in a hall, and they had a giant screen. And who was on the screen but the imam talking directly from Iran, giving his blessing to Governor Whitmer and the electors for having chosen Biden. And then an African American woman walked into the hall carrying an American flag, and they really rudely pushed her out and grabbed the flag and threw her out of the electoral hall. Michigan, the imam directly live from Tehran was addressing the electors. And this brings me to the point of what we're facing, especially in the Midwest northern states. Communism and Islam have merged, and they're working as a unified force to destroy Christianity, to destroy Western civilization, to destroy Christian values. Today, came out yesterday, a decree from the New York City Board of Education. Teachers are not to allow students to use the word parent.
Yeah.
They can't use the word parent in
Or
school.
mom or
Now, why
dad.
would anybody do that?
Or mom or
Why?
dad, by the way.
Because, right. Why? Because, in my parents or my mother or my father, in those words, there is a security and there is another authority. And we are dealing with a global pedophile ring of perverts. And they want to take more and more control. They want to take children from their parents. So what they have to do is to extract the child from parental authority. And getting the kid to stop saying, I have parents, is one way to victimize the kid and isolate them. So folks, you have to protect your children. And as far as transgender politics is concerned, I think it's a total aberration to run high school girls or athletic girls contests having real girls running against girls with testicles. Okay? That's
Yeah.
sick, right? And I say to parents, you have to protect. If parents don't stand up, this is the end of women's sports, as the president said. I hear his thoughts before he says them, I'm telling you, because we think alike. So here's my plan, and I want to address this to every parent of a young girl who may be athletically inclined. And I care a lot because I taught young kid athletes gymnastics, tumbling, trampoline, balance beam, and they try so hard to excel and be great, and to put, girls with testicles on the same track, that's child abuse. So what parents should do is boycott those events, tell those athletic associations that you're not going to participate, and if you do participate, you should organize a little conspiracy. And this conspiracy would work like this. Let's say you have a track and field event, and you have 8 runners on the blocks, right? And 3 of them are girls with testicles, okay? So you tell all the real girls, okay, set in the blocks and wait for the gun. And when the gun goes off, none of the real girls run. and you see three girls with testicles racing across around the block against each other, the laughter would be so great that it wouldn't last another 2 weeks. But it's really bad for girls to be put in a race that they have no hope of winning. It's bad for their morale, bad for their psychology,
Not
bad for
not
their
only that,
self-esteem, bad for sports.
it's not only bad for sports. Like, we have a lot of problems in our society right now that are whether you believe the pandemic, whether it's real or not. We're going through this right now. Uh, we have a president, right, who has put more effort in.
President select.
Right.
President select.
The sniffler and thief, as I like to call him. But he is more embedded into getting transgenders not only back into sports and back into the bathrooms and all these rights for transgender folks. And I have nothing against people that are transgender. If you want to be called Mike and you're Michelle, if you're Michelle and you want to be called Mike, you be you. That's beautiful. Be who you are. But my thing is, when you start, going back and you start saying, well, as taxpayers, we're also going to make you, flip the bill for any person who joins the army because they want to have a sex change. So they do their tour of duty, they get off, and then they go have a sex change on you, the taxpayer. Which right now, why are they even talking about stuff like that when we, the people, need stimulus money to be able to live? They're telling us we're going to be locked down for maybe another year, maybe two. We're not being told when this thing is going to go away, if ever. People that are getting the vaccine, for example, are even being told, well, just because you're getting it doesn't mean that now everything's going to be normal again, or that you can go back into public, or you could, forget about social distancing, or that you don't have to wear a mask anymore. I mean, you can still get the virus, you can still get sick. So, I mean, what's the purpose of the vaccine, A? And B, if we're not going back to, like, normality anytime soon, why are they putting stuff like transgender and all this other stuff like abortions for people in Sri Lanka and all this other nonsense in these supposed bills when all they really should do is cut every American citizen a $3,000 a month check from here to when the end of the virus is, so we can have money to pay our rent, so we can have food on the table, so we can provide. That's it. No more pork. Just give every American $2 to $3 grand every month so they can survive. That's it. Everybody who didn't make over 200,000 last year or on process of making that. Obviously, if you have a gig that you're making over 100,000 this year, you're okay. You don't need the $2 grand. But if you're somebody who, on average makes about 30, 40, 50,000 and you're out of work and you're, given $1,400 and they have the audacity to say that we're lifting people out of poverty with $1,400 who have not probably made a cent in a year and are scrubbing, like the bottom of the barrel just to get by. I mean, it's insulting to hear that.
It's abuse. It's ridiculous to ruin a person's year of work for $40,000, $50,000, and then we're going to give you $2,000. Big freaking deal.
After how many months of us waiting and it's not even 2,000, it's $1,400, and because you're saying, well, we're tying it into the 600 we gave you before, but that's not. Yeah, but that's not what Biden said. And in fact, when Warnock and this other nincompoop in Georgia were running, he said, if you guys vote for them, I'm gonna make sure you get $2,000 immediately. Right? That didn't happen.
Yes.
What happened, Joe Biden?
They live by lying. They live by lying. And that's the essence of communism. It's always the reverse of what it says. The organ, the Ministry of Truth organ in the Soviet Union was called Pravda. And it was just disinformation every single day. Pravda means truth. Communists always reverse the meaning of every word. You know what's the latest N-word to be put on the hit list by the word police? It's an N-word.
It's an N-word? Let me take a guess. I'm going to use my psychic ability. Hold on. Let me see. Nationalist.
No. Normal.
Oh.
No, they're normal.
Normally. That was my next guess. Normal.
Because nobody Nobody's normal. You know, another thing, on my Sunday show, I've taken on a new theme, a new song as a theme of my show, and it's called "The Eyes of Texas." Why?
Cool.
Because the Wokies want to get rid of the marching song of the University of Texas. The eyes of Texas are upon you because they
What?
claim it was racist. Yeah. You want me to sing it for you?
Oh,
Try
oh,
to pick out the.
oh please
Oh, no.
do.
I sing it on my show, so tune in on Sunday because
Well,
I sing the
give
eyes of
give us
Texas
a little bit
upon
of
you
it. I want my audience
all the live
to
long
hear it.
day. What did you say?
I said, give me my audience here just a little taste of the song.
The eyes of Texas are upon you all the live long day. The eyes of Texas are upon you, you cannot get away. Don't think that you can escape them at night or early in the morn. The eyes of Texas are upon you till Gabriel blows his horn. Where's the racist word?
Is Gabriel a racist?
Gabriel's an angel who's
I
going to blow a
know.
horn that will deliver. So
He must be the
no,
racist
the
angel.
reason they say it's racist is because it used to be played in minstrel shows or minstrel bands, and I say, you know, objecting to minstrel bands is one of the most stupid things I've ever heard. Because in effect, what minstrel bands did is they actually opened up entertainment for more and more black people to come in and entertain. You know, it was
True
minstrel
story.
bands that
Yeah.
led to the introduction of the Nicholas brothers, in the 1930s and 40s, appearing in movies. It's a big sham. The communists are destroying the foundations of our country by twisting our thinking. It's everything is racist. Everything is racist. Racist, the word, wasn't coined until 1920s when it gained popularity through Trotsky. Trotsky used the word racism to describe anyone who loved his nationality, his ethnicity, or his culture, or his country more than they did communism. That was the original meaning of racist, and that's who started this whole thing. So be aware. I'm aware of these things because I've really been fighting communism all my life, and I know its characteristics. And I say that this neo-communism that's being pawned on everybody, it's the same old snake, just putting on a new skin. And communism has been molting. It changes its name, its label. What happened in South Africa, the ANC, the African National Congress,
Yep.
that was Marxist communist terrorism that turned a first world country that South Africa was into a shithole country, as the
Yeah.
president of the United States said.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So what they did in South Africa with the ANC, they are trying to do here. And I urge my fellow African Americans to beware. Stop being used as stooges. Really big diabolical minds are putting on this program, but they're portraying it in the media as if it's black people who are responsible. It's Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter are just being used as dupes,
They're
as
puppets.
tools.
They're being used as puppets. That's all it
Puppets,
is. Yeah. That's it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And the transgender and the gay society, because Antifa is in fact a an LGBTQ anti PI, people of color, POC exclusive organization. And when they put out their manifestos, they say don't distribute it to CIS males, which means Christian identity single males, non-POC, non-people of color, and non-LGBTQ, right? And they've embraced the word queer. It's a nice thing. They like it. So I'm happy to use it. Mm-hmm. Yes, sister. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what I find interesting? What I find interesting, again, they're always practicing divide and conquer, but they divide themselves. It turns out that lesbians are not happy with having the transgenders as part, clumped together as part of their movement. They are against that, a lot of them. And so the media is trying to paint with this big broad brush of multiculturalism and diversity. No, America was not based on diversity. It's based on something else. You know what it is? You know what the opposite of diversity is? You're going to be very embarrassed. What is it? No, university. We need American university. We don't need American diversity, right? Oh, brother, I never thought I'd see it. Okay, thank you. Okay, the first thing is the URL. It's easy to remember, freedomslips.com. Freedom's Lips. And I always say this, think of kissing the Statue of Liberty on the lips, freedomslips.com. Then on Sunday, it's Studio A at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And on Mondays, it's Studio B at 10 o'clock at night. And I do appreciate any help anyone can give me. Folks, I've been going through hell in New York, where I'm surviving barely. And if there's any way you can donate anything to help me keep my work going, you can do it through PayPal and robert.morningstar@gmail.com. So if you want to write to me or contact me or donate to my cause, robert.morningstar@gmail.com. And I also have a publication called UFO Spotlight on WordPress, ufospotlight.wordpress.com. And I've just produced I consider this one of the best articles I've published in years. UFO and USO encounters by the U.S. Coast Guard in the Pacific in the 1960s and 70s. So thank you very much. Great to be here, Angel. And hello to Kaiser and Jaffe and all our other good friends in the PSN network. God bless you all. Thank you. Thank you. And we need you. And we need you, Angel. Thank you very much for being my friend and having me on. So good night, folks. And remember this. Good night. You too.
I mean, there's, there it is. I can't say enough about the man. He's just a fantastic guest to have on. And I want to thank everybody who tuned in and both watched and listened tonight. Please check out the rest of the shows here on the network, on networks, PSN, and of course SoFlo. And we'll be back on Sunday night right here at 10 p.m. Eastern on Inside the Jackal's Head, live once again. So until next time, my friends, stay alive, stay healthy, stay living kung flu free, and make sure that you let them know that they cannot get away with what they're getting away with anymore. It's time to be heard peacefully and patriotically. Good night, everybody.